In the early hours of July 6th, 2012, a video shows Skylar Neese walking out to a vehicle that was waiting for her and got in and was never seen again. This is the case of the murder of Skylar Neese by her faux friends, Shelia Eddy and Rachel Shoaf. Skylar Neese was 16 years old, attending University High School in Star City, West Virginia. This is a small town of just under 20,000 inhabitants, and Skylar had been friends with Shelia since she was around 8 years old, and later became friends with Rachel as well around her junior year of high school. It was said that these three were very, very close. They would do most things together. You hardly would ever see one without the other. However, their friendship went on for a while, but towards the end and prior to Skylar's death, their colleagues had mentioned that they were constant fighting, constant arguments, and it seemed as though the trio was having a fracture in their relationship. Now, whenever things would happen, it seems between them, they would go online and there would be subliminal tweets being posted and tend to refer to, something that's happened, not saying the name, but just saying something, as in one that Skylar had made was mentioning not being able to trust someone and, things like that, just subliminal tweets. And so it would be obvious to those who knew them that something was going on. Now, one close friend of Skylar had mentioned that, it's unclear as to when they stopped becoming close friends, but she did mention that she noticed a change in Skylar when she started this friendship with this friendship group with the three of them. Skylar, however, was one of those teenagers who were very responsible. She was doing well in high school and had aspirations of being an attorney. She also worked part-time as Wendy's, and she was very mature and responsible in making sure that she's at work when she's supposed to. So on the morning of July 6th, when she wasn't where she should be, her dad was concerned because he was supposed to meet up with her late morning, and he wasn't getting any answer from her phone. So he called his wife, expressing concerns, and, his wife didn't feel like, they should worry quite yet because she was scheduled for work in the afternoon and she would never miss work. So later on in the afternoon, her employer called and asking where she was. And so this is when the parents became concerned because Skylar would never miss work, at least not without calling ahead of time or requesting time off. So they knew something was wrong. So later, Shelia would call the parents and confess that they had snuck out the night before, but also removed herself from any responsibility by stating that she had dropped Skylar further down the road because she didn't want, them to get busted, sneaking out. However, this was a weird explanation because they lived in an apartment building, from what I saw, and, even if a car pulled up right outside the building, their parents would not have any reason to think that Skylar was out there because they didn't know she was out to begin with. So this was one thing that I made my ear prick up when I heard that. But anyway, she was, she admitted that, and she said, she didn't know where she was. And so she would be trying to post flyers and stuff with the family. She expressed sadness about her friend being missing, all the appropriate actions that one would take. And all the while knowing that she was responsible for what happened to Skylar, and she knew what had happened, and she was not telling. Now, all the people who knew them and knowing how close they were felt as though Shelia and Rachel had to have known what happened to Skylar. Did she run away? Is she staying, somewhere else? Are they covering for her? They would at least know something, and the fact that they were claiming zero knowledge was suspicious. While they didn't think that, their minds didn't go to murder, they just felt like they had to have known something. So over time, the guilt started to wear on Rachel, and she was acting out. And so, she was yelling and at her parents. She was acting a little loony. And so the parents had called the police. And so she was later brought in because, her parents had said that she had something to tell them. And so she cracked and told them that they had killed Skylar. And this was later on in a few months after the event had happened. And so she had, shown them around where the body, where they had buried the body. And they had taken her, when they had picked her up from the apartment, just across the border in Pennsylvania to Blacksville, I believe the town was. Because they usually go there and party every once in a while. But this was under the guise of their normal routine. However, they had stopped somewhere near the woods, wanting to relax and smoke or whatever. And this was where they had attacked her and stabbed her to death. This was very hard to hear because, you have to have a really strong stomach and a really deep level of hate to continually stab someone until they're dead. Because I'm sure you're seeing the blood everywhere. The person's probably crying. You're seeing the damage, and the person's not dying right away, but you keep stabbing and stabbing. This just is a whole nother level of depravity to be able to just kill somebody in that manner. So I can see why, she started losing it, because this is very traumatic, just for anybody who's not, I guess, super cold-hearted. I mean, they're cold-hearted for doing it, but, you're not a seasoned murderer who just has no, can just kill and it doesn't affect you mentally. So, she was taken in, and she, the police asked her what the reason was, and she said that, they didn't like her. They didn't want to be friends with her anymore, which is just such a trivial reason to kill someone. But, they didn't have a whole lot of information as far as Shelia goes. They didn't arrest her right away. They did attempt to have her wear a wire to get, some incriminating information from Shelia, but that didn't work out. And so they were working on getting more evidence to tie her into the murder, and they would later find Skylar's DNA in Sheila's car, because the car that picked her up, was Sheila's car. Shelia, however, even though Rachel didn't really express that much remorse, I guess it was a little bit more than Shelia, who refused to say anything at all. Even at her trial, she refused to say anything. And so it turned out that they had lured her out the house under the guise of their normal hanging out and murdered her, all because they did not want to be friends with her anymore. Now, there was one interview that was done by a psychologist belonging to Rachel, who had mentioned, how sad she was. She misses her friend. But where was this, warm feeling or concern for her friend when they were plotting to kill her? Now, we find out that this was months in planning, that they wanted to get rid of her. And so, there's months of them, hanging out and pretending to be her friend, hanging out with her, while at the same time, them together would be planning how they're going to kill her. And this is just, it's just incomprehensible that somebody could, do that day in and day out. Now, Shelia was the one who, had all the equipment that they needed. They had planned to get that in the car. And when they picked her up to do what they were going to do. Now, towards the end, we know that the friendship wasn't the best. However, it's a small action to take, to walk away if you don't like someone. And they decided, that wasn't enough, that they had to punish her. I feel like this is, it just comes off that way to me, that, instead of just walking away and just leaving her and letting her be, that they hated her that much, or they were so angry that they have to punish or hurt her instead of just simply walking away. So this is how the Neeses ended up losing their only child. The funny thing about this is that Sheila and Skylar had known each other for a very, very long time, since she was around 8. And the parents had said that, they were so close, in fact, that when she came over, she never had to ring the doorbell. She would just come in as if she lived there. And they would have sleepovers. They would hang out at her house all the time. And for it to be somebody that they thought they knew that would do this to their child is just hard to understand or hard to imagine. So, in one interview that I saw, her mom was just like, she feels guilty because, she feels like she never knew this person. How could she not know this person who's at her house almost every day? And I can understand the mom's guilt because, you're supposed to know the people that you let into your house. And how do you not see this or the signs that this was impending? But this is just a part of how, evil they were, that they could just pretend and just fake this day in, day out, and no one would be the wiser. So after the girls were arrested, Sheila just didn't seem to have any remorse even during the trial. I did see an interview on one of these TV shows where Rachel had a psychologist who had mentioned how, she was remorseful about what happened. She was sad and that she missed her friend. However, I don't know that I'm buying that. I feel like that was set up for when her parole comes around to be able to say, hey, the psychologist said. But anyway, that is something compared to Sheila, because all the articles that I've read indicates that she never did show any remorse. And also, she never even made a statement or anything to the family. She was just very cold and had nothing to say. So anyway, Rachel was sentenced in May of 2013, and she was given a 30-year sentence under which she would be eligible for parole after 10 years. Sheila, who wasn't arrested right away, was sentenced in January of 2014, and she received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 15 years. Now, both girls are serving their sentence at the Larkin County Correctional Center, and Rachel actually was recently up for parole back in May of 2023. This is how quickly time flies. And during her hearing, she had claimed that she was under the influence of marijuana when this happened, and she expressed that she was remorseful about her actions. But anyway, her parole was denied, which I felt like that was the right decision to make. The term was so short anyway. I don't feel the parole would be the right decision. And as far as Sheila goes, she is eligible for parole around 2029 based on the original terms of her sentence. So they're both currently serving their time. Rachel is currently expected to be released on or around April of 2028. So it's a very, very short sentence. So since her death, Skylar's parents had set up a scholarship fund in her name, and this was to help a student attend law school. It was an ambition of Skylar to become an attorney. There wasn't any information, however, that this was an ongoing scholarship or a yearly thing for students. But if you do find any information about this, please do drop it in the comments. I did also find a Facebook page that's set up for Skylar. It's called the Skylar Neese Promise. When I visited the page, the last post that I saw was October of 2021. However, the parents are still active. As a matter of fact, they were front and center at Rachel Shoaf's parole hearing as well, to say their piece and to ensure that their child got justice in all of this. And their parents also helped work on a law called Skylar's Law, which would require Amber Alerts to be issued in West Virginia for all missing children. So prior to that, there were specific rules as far as when they would issue Amber Alerts, and this would open things up where the Amber Alerts would be issued regardless of whether they were fair of the kids being kidnapped or not. So I feel like this would be helpful as well, and this would have helped as well when she initially went missing. So this is the case of the faux friends, and this is how it turned out. This is the work that the parents have done has been, a pro in all of this sadness. And hopefully this case will serve as, a cautionary tales for teens, when friendships are going sour, where you're feeling like you're always fighting and it's just not pleasant anymore, then, do go and talk to a parent or an adult about what's happening and maybe get some advice. Because this is one thing that just went deadly that really it shouldn't have. Rest in peace, Skylar.